Hi, and welcome to the Scenic Route podcast. This is the show for building a successful and sustainable business on your terms. My name is Jen, and I'm a rebranding sociologist with a soft spot for rhubarb pie. Each week, I'll strive to expand your branding, business expertise, and mindset capacity. I'm so excited you're here, and now let's get into today's episode.
Jenny Rhodes is a self-care accountability coach, retreat leader, yoga teacher, and personal development guide who helps her clients reclaim their personal power and find their zen again. As a holistic wellness leader in her field, she teaches the roots and spiritual practices of yoga and blends this into her transformational life coaching packages and programs. Like seasonal recipes, Jenny's offerings are attuned to the seasons of nature and the seasons of our lives. Nature is for her the best reminder to evolve and change your personal care practices to keep fresh and stay inspired and feeling your best. Jenny Rhodes, welcome to the Scenic Route podcast. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me.
Yay. Well, the joy is mine. So before we dive into today's conversation, that's hugely going to center around yoga. I already know. We could already tell you that. Walk us briefly through your story, how you started, how you got where you're today. What were your pivotal moments, the big crossroads in your story?
Okay. So thank you so much for having me. I would say the first big crossroad for me in terms of my ability to recognize what I needed to transform in my life was about 15 years ago. And meanwhile, I'd been practicing yoga for years, still leading up to this moment of 15 years ago, where I started to have to come to grips with the fact that I wasn't happy, but I didn't know that I wasn't happy because I have this outward persona of being like this bright, shiny, happy, positive person. And it's true, I am, but bright, shiny, happy people can also have bouts of unhappiness. And for some reason, I didn't know that. And I didn't give myself permission to even think that that was okay. I'd signed up to be the mother of my children, to be, this entrepreneur, but only in little snips and snatches here and there with, to be able to blend my family and have that balance. I feel like I put myself into this little box that really kept me contained and really small. And I realized that what was happening was that I needed a bigger box. And really I needed
no box.
I really needed a mamba box. I needed the ocean, right?
Yes.
And so once I started, and the way it was presenting itself, the way my life was presenting itself to me was small moments of annoyance, but they added up. All these little annoyances throughout.
Yeah, can you do you remember a specific moment that was made your skin crawl?
Well, what was happening was that I was unhappy with the moments that I was in, and my husband was noticing it. And my husband was like, "You don't even really want to be around me anymore. What's going on?"
Yeah, is it me or is it
That was the big one. That was where I was like, "Oh, he notices. Oh, shoot." Because I had built up these resentments all over the years of all the work that we do as women and all the caregiving and all that stuff. And what was happening was these resentments were building up and I wasn't speaking my truth along the way. So for a decade, I wasn't speaking my truth. And so when he came to me and said, what's going on? I don't, it doesn't seem like you want to be around me. And frankly, I'm scared because what's going to happen when our kids grow up and we look at each other and go, wait, I don't even
who is this person?
Who's this person? He's like, I want to spend my life with you, but I need to know that you want to spend your life with me.
Yeah.
And I was like, I need to be able to spend my life with myself first. Who am I? What's happening to me? Why am I unhappy? So that kind of started to unpack. I started cracking open and I just threw myself into every healing modality possible.
But that's how it works, right? There's so many amazing modalities and that's brilliant. But at the end of the day, you don't know what's going to click for you, right?
Exactly.
You got to try it out.
Yeah. Yeah. And I remember right away along my journey, this one healer saying to me, you need to learn how to receive. And I was like, I don't even know what that means.
Dictionary. Yeah. How did she translate it to you?
she didn't actually. She didn't translate it for me, and I needed that. But what I needed was a guide to walk me like hand by hand, like hold my hand, and walk me through that. And it took many different practitioners for me to to compile the information that I was receiving and create kind of my own path forward.
What does receiving for you mean today?
Today, now it means stopping the productivity train, pause long enough to notice what's going on around me, and tune in how my body is feeling. Because sometimes we get so into the productivity mode that we don't touch in with what's going on in our bodies, and then we just keep going and we push through and we push through and we push through, and then we get sick, or then we get angry, or then we like have some sort of
or feeling resentful or
some big like response. Or reaction, really. And so for me, deeply, what receiving means is touching into the divine feminine, honestly. And the energy of the divine feminine is lunar, it's cooling, it's calming, it's receiving. It's receiving. So I actually have an image around that for myself for when I meditate and I know I need to really land.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So I have this whole visual for myself about it, which is all about water.
Nice. Yeah.
Flow of water and allowing that flow to move through you. Because if you think about a river, there's lots of rocks and debris and trees and boulders and the water navigates that. So
it finds its way. It flows.
And so it's like my motto is be like water.
Yeah, right. And that's something like that just reminds me of what is so Scenic Route about water. And like so many coaching clients come to me like, oh, I want to build momentum. How do I build momentum for my brand, for my business? And I'm like, well, it's doing the small things over and over again, right? Like the water is like shaping a rock. It's not doing it overnight. It takes centuries even, or years, whatever, right?
It's consistency and yeah.
And it's just exactly it's consistency. It's doing a small thing over time, knowing it will accumulate to something bigger than that small task itself. And then people are always like, oh, but I kind of like I want to know what that task is in advance. Well, that's not how it works. But
and then I would say even letting that task, however small, be enough for that moment. Enough.
Yes.
Because it will build and it will grow as you practice that consistent task.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's always kind of like that garden image, right? Like where you're planting all the seeds and then let it grow, give it time. Otherwise, you're going to rip it out again 3 weeks later and didn't have a chance to do anything.
Right.
When people are changing too many things at the same time.
Yeah.
You don't know. Even if it was successful, you don't know what actually caused the success because you've changed so many different variables at the same time. Yeah. So if you do change something, always improve one small thing so that was actually the golden ticket.
Yeah. And it's like the pause to receive how that little thing that you did lands, right?
Yeah.
We're saying that about the garden. One of the visuals that I got during that time where I was like, something has to change. I'm actually not happy. And believe me, admitting that was so hard in and of itself. But I felt like at that moment in my life, I had built this amazing, I'd like grown this amazing garden. Like it was beautiful. It smelled good. There was food in it and it nourished everyone around me and my family and then the greater world, our community. Yeah. And like everyone loved this garden and everyone was welcome in the garden and everyone could play in the garden and eat, feel nourished in the garden. But I couldn't get in the garden anymore. I couldn't access my own, the garden that I created.
It wasn't yours to enjoy.
No.
Oh.
Yeah. When you said the garden, I was like, oh yeah, the garden. I remember having this deep feeling of like, I felt so sad that I couldn't access the garden.
Did you feel locked out or did you?
I'd like locked myself out, right?
Oh.
And I think it's that thing that a lot of women do is we give to everybody else, right? And then we have to continue to replenish ourselves. And so we keep giving and we keep giving and we keep giving. And I was giving so much that I kept forgetting to fill my tank, and I didn't get the memo of what self-care actually means, like what self-care actually means. It's not going to get a manicure. That's just maintenance.
Yes. And a capitalistic system telling you need things.
Right. Exactly. I wasn't doing that work. Yeah. And it was so evident that I couldn't, that I was sad that I couldn't access my own garden. Yeah.
Yeah, gosh. Like, I especially feel like it's interesting to go talk about like the thing, like the notion. It really struck with me, like what you said, like, people who have this like Miss Sunshine personality, those are usually the ones no one asks, like, hey, how you're doing. Because, well, they're fine. She's doing fine. She's always been fine, like,
You're
and
right.
it's not exclusive. Like, you can still love your child and have postnatal depression. You can be a super bubbly person, but still have social anxieties. It's not exclusive of each other.
Yes. Yes. But it was so indicative of the little box that I put myself in. Like, I can only be this one type of person. Not giving myself permission to like have the diversity of emotion that I really needed to be a whole person.
How do you feel that small box came into existence? Like, was it always a kind of a part of you during growing up, and it just kind of like got intensified? Or was it something that happened along the journey of motherhood? Or have you kind of like dissected that?
Yeah, I have a little, and I think it honestly comes from my role modeling because
Mm,
I mean, I had a great childhood, but I grew up in a very traditional household. My
mm.
mom was a stay-at-home mom, and the messaging that I had around quote unquote self-care was that it's an indulgence, that we don't
Oh.
deserve it,
Mm.
that it must be nice for her going on a holiday, and
Yeah, or like taking a half day off, and yeah.
like that was always at play in my life.
Yeah. So really like the strong, like the workhorse.
Totally.
Mm,
Keep working, keep giving,
mm.
don't stop. This is the sacrifice that you signed up to make, having kids.
Yeah. So that was kind of like the role model you consciously and subconsciously mostly probably modeled to, because you were like, that's how mothering should look like, because that's how you grew up.
Yeah,
Mm, mm.
yeah, completely. At the expense of my own happiness and health and well-being.
Yeah. And I feel it's so interesting what that does, right? Like, you never notice it along the way. Like, as you said, you didn't know at the time you weren't happy. There were just little tiny moments, and you probably were like, something is, oh, I feel sad or something, or resentful or some, and then it was poof, gone again, until you have like this one moment that sticks with you, and you're like, duh.
Yeah.
How was the like kind of like the whole back and forth between you as this that outside image you've created of yourself, of this Miss Sunshine person, and then suddenly being like, hey, actually it's not so sunny on the inside? That would actually be a great book title, Not So Sunny on the Inside.
Not so sunny on the inside.
Right?
Brilliant.
God, I have to write it.
Write that down. Write that down. That was brilliant.
Okay, like, I'm curious, like, how did that go in terms of like yourself, your kind of like authenticity, how it shaped that, how it shaped your marriage, your friendship? Because I can imagine you had a lot of friends who were relying on you to be Miss Sunshine,
Yeah.
and suddenly, yeah, not so sunny on the inside anymore.
Right. Right. I think the big takeaway for me was the vulnerability piece and learning how
Mm,
to be vulnerable and recognize that there's so much strength in it. And
mm.
so it took a while for the persona, right? The person who is actually, the shiny, happy person to marry and to meet up with the vulnerability person, right? The person who's vulnerable, and like
Mm.
bringing those two together. Like, I could do that on my yoga mat. I could do that
Oh.
in my practice, but I couldn't. It was so hard for me to take it off the mat. And I think that it was about really having to be honest with myself off the mat about what my life was. It's funny how I didn't make that connection for so long. Like I could do it on my mat, but why can't I take this like my truth? Why can't I take that off the mat? Right? Like it was safe. I was on this rectangle. It was so safe.
Yeah, but that's actually it, right? That's you didn't perceive it's safe enough probably to take it outside. So your body was like, no, we're not doing that. Not safe. Mm-mm.
Right. And I felt like what's going to happen? I was so afraid, like, what's going to happen if I speak my truth? Everything's going to fall apart. Like my marriage might fall apart.
Yeah.
My friends might not see me the same way. Right. My community might have less respect for me. Right.
Yeah. So everything, all the feelings around fear and shame, all bubbling up.
Totally. Yeah, totally.
And how did you manage to get the feelings you had on your yoga mat into your everyday life outside the mat?
Yeah. A daily spiritual practice. Full stop. In yoga, it's called a sadhana. And I'm sorry, I know the accent is incorrect with that. I think it's sadhana, actually. But that's the Sanskrit word for a daily spiritual practice. And that is what changed my life. That is exactly, I leaned in, I oriented toward that. I stayed consistent with that practice. And I made it my own. I didn't have any rules around it. I didn't like listen to anyone's dogma around what your spiritual practice should look like. I just leaned in and sat with myself on the daily every morning.
What feels good to me?
Yeah. I included all kinds of yogic stuff, right? I included pranayama. I definitely included pranayama. Yeah, that's what saved me, was that dedicated daily spiritual practice.
So for a yoga amateur, so you did your own kind of like yoga movement routine every day, or
it was a seated practice. So it was a seated practice of meditation and breath work and chanting mantra.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I had a mala, which is like a 108 beads.
These beads. Yeah.
And it helps with it helps with mantra. And so
we like, there are also religions who know that
for sure. It's very common in many religions, many religions. So it's really helpful to have that as a counter as you're going through. So what I would do is I would set out for a mantra practice, for like a 40 or 90-day mantra practice, specific for a condition I wanted to change within myself.
Oh.
I started with anger. Because that's my go-to. Anger was my go-to. I was pissed off about lots of stuff. And I'm like, wow, the angry yogi, isn't that interesting?
I'm the resentful bitch. Like, yeah. Geez, you do not want to cross me if I'm in resentful mode. Like,
Seriously. Yeah.
Bad.
Yeah. I will ice you out. So that's what helped. That's actually what shifted. And that's why I created this whole program, this online program called Elevate. It's a 12-month mentorship program specifically designed to help you stay lovingly accountable to your own daily spiritual practice. We weave in all kinds of yogic principles. We do an asana practice as well. We weave in breath work and mantra, and we meet once a week. And it's incredible. People are already noticing a change in their life. We've only just launched a month ago.
Wow. Yeah, like I'd say like that's always the thing, right? Like I know for me, and I see it like everyone knows this, right? Like when you start something, it's like the gym membership in January thing, right? But every time you start something new, like it doesn't matter what it is, the gym membership, the course, the whatever your kind of well-being, jogging, whatever it is you want to improve. You at the beginning you have this high where you're like, yes, I'm doing it, and you do it one time, then you do it twice, maybe a third time, and then the fourth time, well, you're cutting a bit short because you're like busy,
right?
And then times 5 and 6 they like, oh well, I actually cannot do today. Like, how did you manage to stick with it? What worked for you?
So what I did was that I decided that I loved myself enough to do this for myself. And even if I didn't believe that every day, like I love myself enough to do this, I would tell myself that, because you know what, you focus on expand. So you tell yourself affirmation again and again, and eventually you start to believe it. And then I also carved out time. I woke up here's what I did. I started waking up 30 minutes earlier than I normally did. And that was before my kids woke up, usually. So I would wake up 30 minutes to have that time to myself. I wouldn't go on my phone. I'd brush my teeth. I'd do my little hygiene mindfully. And then I would go and sit on the meditation cushion in my own space. And I called that time non-negotiable time. It was negotiable. Like nothing is going to get in the way of that. I'm not going to schedule a dentist appointment during that. I'm not going to let that time be hijacked by anything else in the external world. So it was non-negotiable time. It was, I love myself enough to do this for myself because I know it works. And that to me, also, I wanted to feel better. That was the big impetus behind it all, right? I wanted to feel better. And I wanted to feel better in my body. I wanted to feel better in my heart. I wanted to feel better in my mind. I wanted to stop those limiting beliefs. I wanted to stop those feelings of low self-worth. I wanted to stop feeling like I wasn't smart enough for things or good enough for in my family, like I wasn't doing enough. I wanted to stop feeling like that and believing those bullshit stories in my head. Are we allowed to ask?
Oh, yeah. God, yes. Oh, God, yes. Yes, yes. Yeah, yeah. I think my podcast all been rated for like inappropriate language. Well,
good.
No, not censoring myself. So yeah, if you have little ones around, put on your headphones. Or you have a little one that, like mine did, he was swearing, but he didn't know. When he first spoke the word truck, it sounded like a fuck. So he would stand like on the side of the road and would be like, Mom, look, fuck. And everyone was like, Jesus goodness, that is like a 2.5-year-old child. And I'm like, well, he's talking about the truck. Secretly, I was like, oh, awesome. My son's already swearing. Love it.
It is so much easier to say fuck than truck. It's true. That TR together.
It's bad. I mean, 2 consonants. That always sucks. Like, I mean, so yeah, like, and he did really it so many times. Like, it was hilarious. Like like in full voice, you know, like, Mommy, look. I'm like, okay. And obviously also like all the combinations, like ice cream fuck.
Oh.
So yes, swearing is totally
oh, good.
I lost track now.
The consistency thing. So yes. to that point, I actually have a free meditation on the homepage of my website called Master Your Mindset, and it's all about consistency. So so for folks who struggle with that, obviously we all do, especially when it comes to our physical fitness, like our ability to like stay consistent, like you were saying with the gym and stuff like that. Yeah. So it's just a free, really, it's not a long meditation. It's just
I love it. We're going to link it in the show notes. Yeah. It's like so interesting that even though we know that something is good for us, we struggle to do it repeatedly. Like, what is your safety net in terms of like, if you feel it's falling through the cracks? Accountability circles or what?
You know, for me personally, I've been doing it so long now that I can be self-forgiving, right? Like I can be forgiving with myself if for some, like if we have guests and I have to take one to the airport, you know, at a certain time, and like my non-negotiable time becomes somehow like it just gets wiped off the calendar that day. Yeah. Like I know that because I've built up the consistency and the practice, that it's going to be okay. Like I can always meditate later, or I can skip a day, right? Yeah. The whole idea of it is when you practice, it becomes permanent. And so I like to think about your daily spiritual practices. It's kind of like spiritual money in the bank. So the more you do it, the more you're building up this resiliency foundation, so that you can better navigate all of the garbage that's being thrown at us in the external world all the time, every day, 24/7. So you're able to be in better relationship with yourself and others and be less reactive. So it's kind of like building up your foundation.
You have like an armor, kind of
Yeah,
like
a currency,
a protection, just kind of sort of a protection. You've built up protection in
totally.
your emotional bank to withstand
Exactly.
certain attack on your energy capacity.
It's true. And so I would say, like, for folks who fall off the wagon, whatever, for people who are struggling with that consistency piece, I would say stick with something do something for 40 full days, just 40-day mantra practice, 40-day meditation practice, 40-day, breath practice. And it could be all three, within the practice. But because if you can stay consistent for 40 days, you're going to notice a pretty radical shift within yourself, and you're going to want more of that. Like, you're actually just going to want more of that. And then if you can think of, like, if we can think about it as like what I would just describe as this bank, like you're putting money in your spiritual savings, right? It's worth it, right? It's worth it, because even after 40 days, you might notice a total shift in perspective around a thing that used to trigger you. Like, maybe it's like less triggering, right?
Yeah.
Maybe just that one thing is less triggering for you. And that's fantastic, because you're going to feel better in your body when that thing doesn't trigger you. Right?
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Right.
And also, I feel like if you're doing something consistently for 40 days, it's not something you do anymore. You became the person who just does.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's
yeah.
It's becoming a part of you, and you don't really.
Yes.
I'm just a person who meditates. Full stop. It's not actively like, oh, I have to get up and do meditate. It just became interwoven into your daily life.
Yeah, it's not a have to do. It's not a should do. It's a I get to do.
Yeah.
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 And you're right about that. It becomes part of who you are. Like, that's why my program is a 12-month mentorship program. Because after 3 months, you're like, okay, now I've got this habit. That's excellent. Okay, I've got this habit.
I've built something up.
Yeah. And then after 6 months, it's really integrated. Like, you're really integrating that into your life. And by 12 months, it's part of who you are. It's in your cells.
Yeah.
Totally who you are.
Yeah. Yeah. I love what you said earlier. Like, you're at a place where you're like, okay, if I can't do it today, that's okay. I'll be okay. Right? Like, I feel that's so important for two reasons. A, you'll always be okay.
Yeah.
Like, I don't wish for anyone listening that your spiritual practice is that you feel like this is going to save you.
Right.
Because there would be such a burden attached to that.
Totally.
Yeah. It's something to enjoy. It's not there to save you.
It's to enhance you.
Yes,
right?
Exactly.
And really awaken your inner essence.
Yeah. So I really love that you said, like, you'll be okay. And the other thing, what comes through with that is being really in the now, and be like, it's okay. I didn't do it today. It doesn't matter if I had a valid reason or not, whatever. I didn't do it today. That's okay. I did the best I could. Not crapping on yourself if you haven't done it. Right? I feel that's, and I mean, I do that too with insert, like, it's so funny, right? With certain things, I don't do that at all. I'm like, okay, I tried, gonna do it again today, tomorrow, next week, whatever. And with others, I'm like, I should have, yeah. It's so, like, it's not like if you have it for one aspect, for one thing, you have it for all the things. Well, I don't know. It didn't work for me, sadly.
Well, one thing I think is really helpful too is, and it gives yourself grace, is that you get to start again. Like, you get to start again. Like, we can start again. And not in that way of like, oh, I'm procrastinating. Not like that. It's more like permission. Like, I didn't fail. I just get to start again. Right?
Oh, I love that. Yeah. So I'm just gonna start again.
Yeah. Right? It's softer than.
Yeah, it's softer, and it's active, right? Like, if you just say to yourself, oh, I failed, like, the story ends there.
Yes.
Right? And if you say, oh, I'm gonna start again, the story continues. Like, there's something coming after that. which
Yeah.
is like, okay, gonna start again. I love that reframe. It's gonna start again.
Yeah. I
Ooh,
love the way you just put it too. That was beautiful the way you reframed that. I like that a lot. Yeah.
that's really powerful. Just gonna
Keeps
restart.
it keeps it alive. It keeps it
Yeah, it keeps the story going, right?
yeah, yeah, that's what you said. I love that. So good.
And I love how that not doesn't just it goes for everything, right? Like even if like let's say you launched a new service in your business
Hmm.
and it didn't work. Most like, people have the memory of a goldfish online. Like you just
Oh.
get to restart.
Well, and I would even, it's true. And I would also add that most of the time, people don't even know if it didn't work. You know
Mm.
what I mean? Oftentimes, only we know that the thing we launched failed.
Yeah, or even like what does fail mean, right? Like I had a coaching client once and she wanted to launch a course and the course didn't sell. Like it didn't. But she got booked out with one-on-ones for the entire 2022.
Wow.
Like
Yeah.
so even though the launch of that course failed,
Yeah.
she secured one-on-one clients worth 100K, right?
Yeah.
Like so how can you then say that didn't work? Right?
Right.
Like it worked. It just didn't maybe work in the way you thought it would, in the
Yeah.
timing you thought it would.
Yeah.
But yeah, she's happy now. Like she got out of that what she wanted, right?
Yeah.
More financial security, more stability. And it didn't show up in the form of a course. It showed up in the form of like monthly recurring revenue.
Beautiful. Yeah. Yeah. It's so great. I love that. Yeah, and I think there's a concept in yoga. There's a philosophy called it's called the parigraha, and it
Mm-hmm.
essentially means like non-attachment. Pretty much, it's
Oh,
letting go
mm-hmm.
of not just like objects and things and all the junk that we hoard, but you know,
That too. But
too, but letting go of the outcome,
yes.
releasing that, releasing
Mm.
the outcome, right? Because when we grip so hard, we're pushing stuff away. We don't, there's no expansion in the grip, right? If you loosen
Yes.
the grip and you soften the grip, there's more room to let in what's going to actually come in. And you
You
can't know it.
mhm. Yeah. You let more in. And also like what really I struggled with this for a long time during my personal growth journey. Like, but if I set a goal, that means I want it. Like I'm not setting just goals for like funsies. Right?
Yeah.
I'm not a goal setting person in general, but if I do, I'm like, oh, I really want this. So
Yeah.
how can I like detach from something if I
Yeah.
really want it? How can I in my head it was always if I detach it means I don't really want it or I
Yeah.
don't want it so badly. And
Right.
that was really a struggle to come to a piece where like no, actually it doesn't is it's not this or that,
Yeah.
right? And what really helped me visualize this, like what you said about like the strong grip,
Yeah.
what really helped me visualize that's so funny because I'm not really a sports person. my my husband is, but like I do sports, but I'm not like a sports analogy person. But what really helped me was like being like, when you're all tight and like when you play tennis or when you watch a good tennis player like Roger Federer, for example, when he's on the court, like when he starts before he hits the ball, he's not there all rigid and like
Yeah.
he's like light and bouncy, right?
Yeah.
Because you have more ability to move when
Mhm.
you loosen the grip.
Yeah.
And that's actually what you want, right? Yes, more can get in, but
Yeah.
you yourself you're more flexible to react to whatever is coming.
Totally.
And
Yeah.
that's ultimately also what I'm like, oh, now I get it. I don't know why the sports image helped me, but it did.
That's super helpful. Yeah, it's bending rather than breaking, right?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, if your knees are all locked and tight, you're not gonna like. your reaction time is longer
Yeah.
than when
Yeah.
your knees
Yeah.
are slightly bent, not
Mhm.
fully bent, but not fully straight.
Yeah.
You're just quicker in your movements.
Yeah, and
And
it's
I
same
feel
in
that goes,
all yoga poses. Like if you lock out your joints, there's,
yeah.
if you stop your breath, there's no energy flowing. And we are
Mm,
made up of water and energy, right?
yeah.
And the whole idea of yoga is to stay in the flow, stay
Yeah.
tapping into your pranic, your life force. Your life force
Yeah.
energy is prana, travels on the breath. Your breath stops.
Yeah.
Well, you're stopping your
You
life
stop.
force energy
Yeah.
from flowing through you. You lock out your joints, you tense up, you tense your jaw. Then that
Mm.
prana can't flow. That life force energy can't flow.
Yeah. And especially in our, like most of our modern lives, like we have so many things where we're constrained in one position. We sit at our desks for like 8 hours. We stand behind a hill for 8 hours. Like there's rarely the space for like wiggle it.
Right? Oh my gosh, that's so funny that you just did that. I just did that last night in my yoga class. I offered that up. Just stand up and wiggle and let your booty really
Oh God, yeah.
around. It
Yeah.
was amazing.
Yeah. I'm doing this trauma release course, and
Mm,
that was it's actually so beautiful. Like she's the first, like the intro to every day's movement is you lay on your back. You can do
mhm.
it in bed, you can do it anywhere. It's really like it's accessible for everyone. You lay on your back, you press your heel, like you have lay on your back, your knees are up, your heels press into the bottom, into the ground below you,
Yeah.
and then you rock yourself, you rock your body
Yeah.
like how you would rock a child to
Yeah.
kind of like release tension, especially around the hips and like hip
Yeah.
fascia and hip joints and everything. That just reminded me of that wiggle. Like every time I do this feels so immensely gratifying
Yeah.
because it's not a movement you do.
No. Yeah, actually, that's funny that you mentioned that too, because I teach prenatal and postnatal yoga as
Mm,
well. And in postnatal yoga, they bring the babies to
mm-hmm,
class. So I'll cradle and rock
mm-hmm,
babies while teaching, just
mm-hmm.
to soothe babies. And so I've brought that into my physical yoga practices and offered that up to my students, my adult students, to cradle themselves, right? To rock
Mm-hmm.
themselves, right?
Yeah,
So we'll
yeah,
often do a standing poses where we rock. We'll
yeah.
often do poses laying down and rocking for that very, very reason, because it is quite soothing. If it's soothing for babies, well, hey, we were once babies. It's
It's
still
still
soothing.
suiting for, yeah. I mean, I feel all the things when I do that. Like there are days when I cry when I do that. There are days where I just feel like that deep bone tiredness. There are days where I feel gratitude, where I feel happy, where I feel whatever comes up during the day. Like that rocking motion, it's
Yeah,
insane. It's intense. Like I don't know.
yeah, so healing, so healing.
Yeah.
But you mentioned something about like learning how to let go, like learning like to release.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the detachment.
Yeah. How did you learn that? What did you do? What do you do?
I feel like it's it's the way, for one thing, it's the way how I approach goal setting. I I don't do like the traditional goals of I want to have 200K revenue this year. I want to lose 20 pounds, whatever. Um I kind of do differentiate between lead and lag goals.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever heard of lead and lag goals. Like a lag goal is like really the losing 20 pounds. That's a lag goal. Like it's something that lags behind. Like
Uh,
it's also something that it's not in your control. Like if you say I want to have 100K sales revenue, well, it's not ultimately in your power if someone buys. What you can control is everything up to that goal. So
mhm.
that's a lead goal. So like little steps that would lead you to what you want.
Mm,
So
yeah.
I say like, oh, okay, my lag goal is to feel better. How do I do that? Okay, I know I feel better when I sleep more than 7 hours. That's a lead goal. I know when I drink, I don't know, 6 glasses of water a day, when I eat an apple a day, whatever, all these types of things that will lead to you feeling better.
Yeah.
So you hold yourself accountable to that. And you detach from the lag goal because focusing on these lead goals will get you where you want to go.
Yeah. Yeah.
If at one point you're realizing it doesn't add up, you can course correct with your lead goals.
Yeah.
Right. But that kind of that's how I learned to really detach from the outcome because it's not ultimately in my control. But the lead goals are.
Yeah. Love that. You're so wise. Yeah. We think we can control everything. Gosh, you're right. It's letting go.
We don't control shit like it. Or depending on parts of us control a lot about us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Like our ego oftentimes controls too much about us. Our mind other times.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a choice that we let it have that control. Like that we can choose.
Yes. But I'd say for a lot of people, they're not aware that they made a choice.
But it's a choice.
Right?
Yeah.
Because if you've been on the ego train for so long, it just feels like it's a part of who you are until you realize, no, actually, yes, it is a part of me, but it's not me.
Yeah. That's why I love yoga and meditation. Because you can really observe the ego, really with so much clarity and see how much it gets in your way. I mean, it's necessary, but you can actually really observe.
There's nothing wrong with the ego. Like the ego has its purpose. Yes.
Absolutely. But you can also see how it works for you and against you when you are taking contemplative time, whether it's on your yoga mat in movement, or whether it's seated on a cushion in meditation or laying down in meditation. That reveals itself to you.
Ew, it shows its ugly face most of the time.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. It's rare that you meet an ego that's pretty.
Yeah. I think the letting go piece too, especially around like when you want to manifest something, like I want to manifest 200K, or I want to manifest, like for me, a yoga studio in my backyard. You got to trust. I think trust is the biggest, I think that was what's at play there for you when you were able to back off and let go. You trust it, right? You trust the universe. You trust that it's going to work out. You trust that it's
exactly. And at the same time, and I feel that's a misconception sometimes people have who are newer to manifesting. We're like, it's not, I manifest this, and then you sit on your bum. Like you still do things, but your energy, your vibration, however you want to call it, your intention behind it is different.
Yeah.
You're like, hey, okay, I'm doing things. I'm doing lead goals that I know, I trust, will lead up to what I want, whatever it is, like the yoga studio, the 200K, the whatever. And letting it unfold. Because as like we had with my client example with the course, sometimes it shows up in a different way, in a different timeline.
Yeah. Yes. Sometimes it reveals.
You got to be flexible enough and not have your knees locked.
Exactly. Don't hold your breath.
But I'm sure you're free, like the meditation we're gonna link in the show notes that you bring for everyone listening. That's also gonna help you to not stop your breathing. Does it also have exit breath work in it? I love breath work.
Always. I'm
amazing.
a big fan. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna download it too. I really love breathwork. Like I feel always so kind of silly when I do it. Like I'm always like, okay.
Well, I have a whole breath course on my website. It's under courses, and it's a 6-week breath course. And it's called Pranayama for Beginners. So it's all about
cool. Yeah.
Yeah, tapping
So
in.
yeah, if you're listening and were like, what breathwork, what the heck is that? Go check it out. Like maybe that could be like another really fun, like video vlog idea. You do all these like modalities and you record the sessions to be like, hey, that's how it looks. That's what happens if you do breath work.
Hey, yeah. It's like before and after,
exactly.
right?
Yeah. And in this in between,
Right.
like the
Yeah. Right. There's this really funny meme. I don't know if you've seen it. It went around for a long time, a lot of years ago. It was like a gray donkey on one side. It was the before. It was like a picture of like a cartoon gray donkey. And then the after picture is like this rainbow unicorn.
yeah.
Right. So the idea is like after a yoga practice or after meditation.
Yeah. You're
go
like,
from like this gray donkey to this like magical rainbow unicorn.
Love it. Go listen to Jenny's mindset meditation. Like, don't be a donkey, be a unicorn. Like, in a world where you can be a unicorn, don't be a donkey. Like, nothing against donkeys, but we all want to be unicorns, right?
Totally.
Hey, Jenny, like, it has been a blast talking to you.
Yeah, you too.
I always have one last question because I always need new material. What book are you currently reading?
Oh, wow. I'm reading, I don't remember the name of it exactly, but it is the biography of Yogananda. And he was the first yogi to come to the West. And he actually is responsible for creating the Self-Realization Center in Encinitas, California.
Yeah. Wow.
So yeah, I've been reading about his life.
I love that. That's fascinating about biographies. I'm gonna put it on my cart of my list of books to read. I feel like there are two personalities in me: the one who puts all the books on the list to read on the reading pile, and the one who actually reads them. But
I'm so that person. Oh my gosh, yeah. Oh my gosh, it's been a really long time since I've read a book for like a novel, a fiction book.
I do that every now and then because I need breaks from like business books or self-help or self-growth books. Like I need a break. So I always throw in some novels because I don't know.
Yeah.
Gotta keep it up. Hey, Jenny, again, thank you so much for joining me on this episode of the Scenic Route podcast.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for listening to the Scenic Route podcast. I hope you've enjoyed today's episode and that you can take something from it that feels right to you. I'd be so grateful if you could share the Scenic Route podcast with others. As always, you can head over to scenicroutepodcast.com to check out all the links and resources from today's episode. Oh, and while you're there, don't forget to download my free email course, Intuitive Branding Invitation, to teach you how you can successfully tune into your own brand frequency and rediscover your brand's unique gifts, strengths, and talents. So thanks again. Talk soon.